British Columbia gets a new premier next month, and the frontrunner has bold plans to tackle the province's housing crisis. In this episode, we're going to dig into his strategy and explore what it means for our local Sunshine Coast real estate market.
Earlier this spring, following a bout of cancer, the current Premier, John Horgan, said he was going to step down. And so that means that the NDP is looking for a new leader, which in turn means that the province will get a new Premier here later this fall. David Eby is currently an MLA for Vancouver Point Grey, and he has been the Attorney General for the province as well as the Minister of Housing. But when he announced that he was going to run for leadership, he stepped back from both of those portfolios. Part of him deciding that he's going to be premier, he's put forward a really huge housing plan that he's going to enact when he comes in. And I kind of want to talk about that and see your thoughts on how these province-wide effects will affect our local market here on the Sunshine Coast. I'll add the full backgrounder in the show notes because it's pretty comprehensive, but kind of the four topics I think that are of most interest to us are the elimination of strata rental restrictions, a flipping tax, secondary suites will be made legal everywhere across the province, and municipalities will be expected to build a certain amount of housing each year. And if not, the province may step in. Right off the top, how do you think the elimination of strata rental restrictions impacts our real estate market on the Sunshine Coast?
You'd have more buyers interested in the stratas. I mean, having people being able to rent out the units, it may put off some potential buyers that wouldn't want to live there because, rentals, that kind of thing. But I think that it would more open up to a bigger buyer group, those units, because then people could buy them as an investment property and rent them out, which, I think would probably be positive for the value of the units, and then also positive for, the available rental units that are in the pool right now, because we are still very tight on that on the coast. So I think overall it sounds like it could be a good thing and not detrimental to pricing at all. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that from an affordable housing perspective, which is what he's focused on, I think this is a really good one. I think I get the feeling in BC sometimes tenants are treated like second-class citizens, but pretty much everybody I know, myself included, we've all rented at some point, and I've never burnt a house down or kicked holes in the wall or anything like that. I was a really good tenant. And so I think that by and large, this will be a really good thing for affordable housing.
Yeah, agreed. We approve. David Eby, we approve.
Eby has also proposed a house flipping tax. The goal of this would be to drive speculators out of the market. When you buy a house, you'd have to live in it for 2 years to escape the flipping tax. And my understanding is that if you bought and then sold within that 2-year period, there'd be a prorated tax that would get less as you got closer to the 2-year period.
Oh, really? So it's not just like a take it or leave it.
That's
less
right.
than 2 years.
Yes, and there will also be exemptions for life happens. So you get a job transfer, or there's a death or a marriage or a divorce or something like that, some reason that you are forced to sell before your 2 years, that would be tax-free. And any tax that is taken from this will go directly to the Affordable Housing Fund for the province. All of this is kind of like an election platform.
Oh, okay.
So it's generalities. So I'm not exactly sure how it's going to work. And I don't know if David Eby knows exactly how it's going to work. But the idea here is that in the short form is that if you flip a house, you're going to get taxed on it. And that's
unless you stay in it for 2 years, as opposed to where we are.
You actually have to live in it.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. In my experience anyway, there isn't a lot of people buying houses and flipping them, a few weeks later. I mean, over the last couple of years, I've maybe seen that 5 or 6 times where clients of mine have bought and then sold, within 3 months of buying it. And that was more opportunistic than planned. I mean, that was, just buying something in the market going up and them selling it. A common misconception with the Sunshine Coast is that we're not part of the Vancouver Real Estate Board. So what happens sometimes is there'll be someone with a house here that maybe doesn't live here or does live here, but they've got some hotshot realtor or what they perceive as a hotshot realtor, because most realtors are hotshots, just so you know. If you ask any of us, we're doing great. Probably the best in our area. Anyway, not all of us win awards. Like the coast.
Not everybody can prove that they're the number one realtor.
But a lot of people feel that way. Anyway, so if you have someone from out of town and you're under the delusion that it's a different board and you're going to get more exposure or whatever if you list with an out-of-town realtor and they aren't busy enough there that they're willing to come and take on the potential liability of listing a home in a market that they don't work in or understand, sometimes they'll misjudge. So they'll look at tax assessment and they'll be like, oh, well, in West Van or whatever, the stuff's selling for below tax assessment, so they list their house below tax assessment, and someone comes in with an astute realtor that's got cash to buy, and they'll see that that's an undervalued property. If they didn't hold offers, someone came in with a cash full price offer, they buy that, and then at that point they realise there's $200,000 equity. Whether it's just a complete lack of effort on the listing agent's side or a lack of research. For example, I had one once where I noticed that it was just under the size that was required for a subdivision. So identified that, talked to my buyer. We bought the house within whatever it was, 2 weeks. We had the approval for it to be subdivided. We relisted it, and the guy made $250,000. Obviously, the person selling the house to begin with isn't super happy with that, but those opportunities do come up, although they are kind of few and far between. But that would be something that I've seen more frequently than someone buying a house and then trying to do a quick reno and then flipping it, within a year kind of thing. So I don't think this particular thing will have a huge effect, on the Sunshine Coast, other than a very small percentage of developers that are in the market. So
if this new flipping tax does come into effect, would you think that there could be a bunch of properties coming on the market, people trying to get under that wire of 2 years to avoid the tax, or you don't think that'll be an issue?
It could be a cumulative effect of, bylaw changes restricting people's use of their property. So anyone that's bought in the last maybe 6 months to a year, 9 months-ish, that bought the property to do Airbnb and didn't necessarily know what was going on with zoning changes and that kind of stuff, and this comes up and they get wind of this, I think there could be some people trying to get in under that wire, but I'm not sure that
it'll be overly widespread.
I don't think so. I think that people selling Airbnbs is going to have a lot more of an impact because of zoning changes and approved use of those units is going to have a much bigger effect than
a flipping tax.
Than a flipping tax. We don't see a lot of that kind of short-term speculation, and I don't anyway. I mean, other realtors may, but that's kind of not my bread and butter.
Something else that was included in this document was, I thought, rather provocative, that everywhere across BC, secondary suites would be allowed. The explanation was pretty thin. There wasn't a whole lot of detail to go on. But my understanding was that this would only be for single-family homes. It wouldn't be condos or anything like that. What would that mean to the Sunshine Coast if essentially every single-family home on the coast could legally have a secondary suite?
Well, it would definitely open up rental inventory if assuming that people wanted to take advantage of that. It'd be good for the builders, I guess. Then obviously that's going to be of benefit to potential tenants because there's going to be a wider inventory and more availability. So yeah, I think that that would be a positive thing. I'm not sure how that would work though with zoning and local government requirements and that kind of stuff. Because say you're up in Aurora Estates, right? You've got 8,000 square foot. Some of them are smaller than that lot. And you've got your house on it and you've got a little bit of a backyard. There's still going to be setback requirements. Not every single home will be able to have that secondary suite. You know what I mean? So. Yeah.
And I do wonder if there should be an asterisk beside this in the document that says, secondary suites allowed all across the province, where it makes sense or where it's feasible. Because yes, I do think that there are some units that are either the location or the size or whatever it is would lend itself to it. With regards to resale values, do you see any benefit to this to buyers coming in, that they're looking at something now, maybe a first-time buyer, or they're moving from a condo to a house? This makes it more affordable for them?
Yeah, I think that if people are looking at it and they can have an authorised suite, right? So if it's an unauthorised suite or an illegal suite, banks still lend on that. If it's an unauthorised suite, but it's got a full kitchen in it and it's been rented out and that kind of stuff, that doesn't normally stop a mortgage broker being able to use that potential revenue to have the buyer qualify for more money and be able to buy, the house that they want. The potential for suites, I don't think will help in the short term a potential buyer, because you can't go to the bank and go, I'm buying this house for $800,000. If you give me another 50 and wait 6 months, I'll have a suite in here and rent it out. So I don't know if that'll help. Right now with the with the struggles that buyers are potentially having with having to qualify for higher interest rates and therefore not being approved for enough to be able to buy into the market they want because the sellers haven't adjusted their prices, knowing that this is reality. So I think there's, a bit of a lag on that side happening. But yeah, definitely, this type of thing, I think for a buyer's agent or for someone selling a home in an area, understanding the ramifications of this would just add to their ability to talk perceived value in the future and help them sell the home or help the buyer make a decision long term that this could be a good investment, given that, once they save up some money and do the reno, they can then rent that space out. So yeah, I think that, that will have a positive effect.
The fourth topic we're going to talk about related to this David Eby platform is that somehow municipalities will be expected to build a minimum amount of housing over a set period of time.
Okay.
Again, that the details on that are really, really thin. But it sounds like he wants to use a carrot and the stick approach, that a municipality would set their own goal for housing. And if they meet that goal, they would be rewarded with additional grants and funding for neighborhood amenities. But if they don't meet that goal, then the threat is that the province might come in and meet that goal for them.
So they'd start building.
I don't know. It's pretty thin. So on one hand, I can see, yes, that would be a good way to get property into a market, affordable housing into a market, but I'm not really sure what the mechanism is going to be to make that happen. And I'm wondering what your thoughts are on that.
I mean, the concept of additional housing units would be good. I think, a lot of areas, and especially remote places, maybe, landlocked peninsulas that are serviced by ferries, may, especially with an older demographic, they may have been very restrictive for many, many years because your primary constituency is retirees. They're not necessarily interested in development or adding housing or that kind of stuff. The general consensus when I first came to the coast was, for most buyers, was, I'm here. That's enough, people. Let's shut her down. We want to keep it just like we have it right now, right? But as a community grows, you do need that housing infrastructure put in. And so if zoning and council and everything else is super restrictive for 2 or 3 terms, that ends up with, you being in a situation where there isn't enough housing, there isn't really enough, anything, including water, to be able to, sustainably manage a growing, little community. And so that, to me, was, potentially short-sightedness from councils in the past, not wanting to see growth because the primary voter group or the people that were squawking at them the most didn't want to see that. And so nothing, was kind of done. So this backfill approach, I guess, is conceptually great, but I mean, there's a lot more to it than just building houses, right? You need that sewer infrastructure, you need water for people to use, you need services, you need to expand all of the fire departments and RCMP and all that kind of stuff. So it's easy enough to start banging out houses. I mean, if you can find the construction people and the land to do it, which in and of itself would be challenging. So this, to me, seems to be something that a politician might say for getting, some good airtime and potential votes. But I mean, how do you follow through?
So I'll double check, but I think that in the document, it said that if it was a scenario where land was the issue, that the province has lots of land, that the province could help you overcome that, could help a municipality overcome that. Like how you had touched on with having restrictive councils for a number of terms in a row. I think that's happening all across the province. And I imagine that that's what this is about, is that people are, like you said, really wanting to protect the current state of their community. And that's just hampering development and driving prices up. So I think that's where he's coming from. He does have a reputation of not liking or disregarding NIMBYism. My understanding of his view is that you need affordable housing and we all have to just accept it. That's how this is going to be. So I'm not really sure what this is going to look like for here or for anywhere in the province, but it is kind of a interesting concept.
Yeah, well, I think the concept is good. I think the implementation could be hard, but assuming that it could be implemented and done, then I think that, that'll be of benefit to the community. I think more inventory is always good. I mean, in the short term, if it came on quickly, like with a glut of potential Airbnbs coming on, that's going to have a downward effect on prices in the short term. But in the long term, inventory is good. It makes for a healthy, healthy real estate market, and that's kind of what we need, right?
Let's talk about the Sunshine Coast real estate market for November. Between the recording of the podcast and the airing of the podcast, there's going to be an interest rate announcement from the Bank of Canada, and it's widely assumed we're going to get another 0.75 or maybe even a full point. How close to the breaking point are we with interest rates on the Sunshine Coast?
Yeah, it's getting up there. So we've definitely noticed a slowdown. So what I've noticed is a lot of buyers kind of sitting on their hands. There are motivated buyers that have been pre-approved and have got those pre-approval at the lower rates, pre-2 jumps, I think, or maybe even 3. So they're out there trying to spend before a certain date. Other people, I found the interest rates that have happened have kind of priced them out of the market already, sort of. Like I find that the sellers haven't necessarily adjusted their pricing and expectations to the new qualification or reality of potential buyers, right? So I think that as you go up in price brackets, there's less and less buyers qualifying for them now, and another interest rate hike will exacerbate that. And the thing that's kind of holding prices where they are is lack of inventory, right? How close are we to breaking point? I mean, from what I've heard, there could be this interest rate hike and another one before the end of the year. And I would say, past mid-November, probably end of November at least, we're going to be very, very quiet as far as transactions goes. We're already kind of way down year over year and even seasonally, right? This is abnormally slow, but house prices are holding. So I think that if house prices continue to hold because of lack of inventory and interest keeps going up, that's just the gap between what people are approved for and what they want to buy is going to get greater. And I think that, by the middle of next year, what we'll start to see in January is we'll start to see house prices dropping, and everything I've seen is, we're expecting about a 15% drop in value between, conceivably what's now and the middle of next year, or, the end of spring, start of summer next year. And at that point, the disparity between what people can buy and what the prices are should have balanced out a little bit. And we're going to be very much in a buyer's market, but at least the buyers will be able to afford, what's on offer. I did read an article in Russ Qureshi's newsletter the other day. He summed that up really, really well and just explained that, like, as a buyer, don't worry about really interest rates. Don't worry about, how much property was purchased for a year ago. If it works for you, just get into the market and go from there. And I think that's a really nice and clean and simple way of explaining it to people, because people do get so wrapped up in real estate. It's one of the few, obviously it's one of the biggest investments that people make in their life, but it's also one of the least respected professions, I think, where people, they'll watch shows about real estate or, flipping homes or, love it or list it or whatever it is. And they think they have this big understanding that they need to understand all these caveats and everything else that's going on in the market, which is interesting to know. And it's always good to be very well informed. But ultimately, if you're looking for a home and you're going to raise a family, you're going to, get yourself set up, get out of the city, the Sunshine Coast is a great option. And there's so many more things to just a potential lift in property value that you need to factor in,
right,
when you're moving here. Just lifestyle. I mean, we do a lot of stuff on that and, less of stress, less of commute, all that kind of thing. So I think there's more to it. And like I say, Russ did a good job. So I don't know if we can put that link in somewhere, but
we'll add it someplace.
It was good, yeah.
A recent article in Business in Vancouver talked about the current labor shortage for builders and construction workers, and that it's going to get worse in the years to come. What impact is that going to have on new construction here on the Sunshine Coast?
The cost of new construction is going to go up, and that's going to push up the cost of, push up all value in all real estate, right? Like, if you have a house and you have to get some new siding put on or whatever, and that, that job cost $20,000 2.5 years ago, and now that's $80,000, that's going to be reflected in, what resale homes go for, but especially in what new construction goes for. Buyers seem to be okay accepting that with inflation, new home construction's gone up. So if that's, however long ago, $350 a square foot, now $450, now $550 a square foot, people seem to be willing to accept new construction going up, but less so resales or existing homes and that kind of thing. But at some point, if the replacement cost of that home, so you've got a 3,500 square foot home, and maybe it's 30 years old, but it's been well maintained, and that's listed for $1.4 million, but to replace it and buy the land is $1.9 million. Eventually, that's going to have some upward pressure on what the value of that home is. And I don't think we've really seen that as much now. And I find that when I look at it through that kind of lens and I look at the new construction homes, the spec homes that developers have built and are now selling, they're pretty good deals out there, especially the ones on Hanbury Road. But they are very good. To buy the land and to build the home now would cost you more than the developers selling it for. Right. With GST included, and they're looking to get out of the market because obviously they're exposed and they're invested, and this probably isn't the only unit that they've got listed, and that's not specific to any one that I'm working with, but just as a generalization. So I think that that's going to continue to be something that affects and increases costs. And I had some work done the other day, and I was talking to electricians, and there's a massive shortage of electricians, and there's going to be because there's such a demand for electricians just going around and plugging in electric chargers, and there isn't enough electricians just to go around to do, let alone any other construction. Yeah. So, there's a lot of weird, I guess, changes that are happening with new technology and that kind of stuff that you would never have really predicted. I guess, some futurists could have sat down and thought about it, but for me, I would never have thought new home construction would be affected by the fact that there's no electricians to wire up houses because they're all wiring up, electric car chargers or selling solar panels.
What do you have online now or coming online in the near future for listings?
I have a couple in Roberts Creek. I have a brand new build on Hanbury Road. One's got occupancy right now. The other one's coming up. They're both beautiful, brand new builds, around 1,800 square foot each. Nice double car garage on 2.3 acres. Nice and sunny lot, which you don't always get in Roberts Creek. And those two are, I'm not sure they'll both be available by the time this comes out, but they're definitely nice to check out. There's another nice 5-acre piece on agricultural land in Roberts Creek on Mansfield Road. That one's beautiful generational property. And then I also have a really neat modern home on Wharf Road in Langdale. You were there, didn't that one jump out at you? Wasn't that gorgeous?
Yeah, we talk about it a lot. My wife and I, we shoot videos and photos for Tony. We kind of go through homes and we grade them. Oh, we like this, we don't like that. And maybe once or twice a year, we see a house that we're like, we want to live in this house. And that Wharf Ave house was like a 10 out of 10.
Yeah, it was beautiful. And we want to have Paul and Val in Langdale. So we're going to set up a GoFundMe page. Get Paul and Val into 111 Wharf Road in Langdale. Now, Wharf Road, it is a gorgeous home, beautiful views, unique views on the Sunshine Coast. It's the only place, Langdale, where you get the views of the North Shore Mountains, and cypress lights at night are beautiful, and beautiful sunrises every morning, which are, awe-inspiring. But it is an exclusive listing. So you'll have to go to the website if we can maybe put another link.
Yeah, we'll link it all up.
Encyclopedia links. That's what we like. Thanks for watching, and if you haven't already, please consider subscribing. While you're here, maybe you want to check out one of my listings or watch my video about why you should choose me to sell your home.